I grew up in an Irish Catholic background, soft Irish Catholic, I suppose. My parents never really forced the entire religion thing upon me. We never even bothered to go to church or anything like that, although I was sent to a Catholic school, but I think my parents did that more out of a sense that I would get a more disciplined upbringing in a Catholic school than in a public school. Turns out they were right. We were a bunch of ungovernable little savages, and, well, anyone who's had a Catholic education inflicted upon them knows that they instill order upon you. But, like I say, it was a soft Catholic upbringing. It was never thrust upon me except for when I went to school. No one expected me to go to church. And a lot of my friends, in fact, I think all of my friends were non-Catholics or went to public schools. There was a couple of Protestants of various denominations. One of my best friends growing up was Jewish, although he was kind of Jewish in the same way as I was Catholic. His parents expected him to be bar mitzvahed. They thought of themselves as Jewish, but it wasn't really a big issue to them, and the kids were pretty much free to make up their own minds in terms of metaphysics or whatever. And I remember this fellow, the Jewish friend that I had, or I should say he was Jew-ish, always harping on the subject of religious guilt. And I never quite understood what he was talking about. He said, oh, religion, all that it is guilt. It's just crap. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. Needless to say, he doesn't consider himself Jewish anymore, not even Jew-ish. He rebelled against it, and he said, I've had enough. And to the point where there was a certain period in his life where I remember him behaving in a way that if he didn't come from that particular background, he could easily have been described as an anti-Semite. I never understood this. I never understood this extreme bitterness that he had, or at least I never understood until later. I always thought, well, it can't be that bad. Your family are nice people. We certainly had nothing against them. Our parents actually got along reasonably well. But he kept harping on this issue of guilt and how that was what disgusted him to the point where he couldn't handle religion, but particularly his own religion, anymore. He wanted nothing more to do with it. As I said, his rebellion took such a ferocious turn that there was a certain point where one could actually have called him an anti-Semite. I never understood it, but later on in life, once I began to examine the guilt that I and others around me who had been brought through the Catholic school system, it was particularly apparent on people that came from actually observant Catholic families, that guilt was something that I'd underestimated. I think I felt more than my fair share of guilt, but I think I've gotten off relatively lightly compared to some people. It's a ferocious thing. It's something that can crush your spirit, fill you with dread, and it's something that I think has ruined many, many lives, and it's a wonderful tool for the mental or intellectual tyrant. If you want to control people, inflict guilt upon them. If you're successful at that, you've got them. The old Jesuit saying, give me a child until he's 7 and he's mine for the rest of his life. Well, that's referring directly to guilt. You've put this harness on his mind, and you've got the leash that's attached to that harness, to that collar around his neck. Now, I still to this day, I won't say that I understand Jewish guilt completely, at least in as much as I'm able to explore it, but it strikes me that the Catholic and the Jewish versions are two quite different types. My experiences with Catholic guilt, or talking to people who have felt it, it's a feeling that you're a terrible person, that you've failed morally and spiritually, and you're going to be severely punished for it, severely, forever, if you don't atone for your sins. But the bar is set so high that they just want to make sure that you feel guilty forever. Sexual guilt is rampant in the Irish Catholic community, I know that. A lot of Catholic girls, Catholic young women, have sexual problems in terms of, I guess the old-fashioned word would be frigidity, or nowadays, I suppose, a little bit more clinical anorgasmia or something like this. My understanding of Jewish guilt is It's the feeling that you're a terrible person, that you failed your family, that you failed your people, that you failed your past, and you just, you're just a bad person. And look at how good that we are to you, and you're failing us. That's what I think that Jewish guilt is, seen from the outside. I've had the Irish Catholic variant inflicted upon me in a light kind of way, but as I say, I can. When it was successful, I think that, and it was successful on me sometimes, I think that I can understand it as a concept, and it's brilliant. Like I say, it is brilliant in terms of the way it can control you. Now, I'm sure that one of the reasons why the Jewish people have been around for so long is that they've successfully employed guilt among themselves to keep up the traditions, to keep up the identity. In my tradition, it's to keep people in line and subservient to the clergy. Or at least this is what I believe it is. They fill you with impossible ideals that no human being could possibly live up to. Like, try telling a 14-year-old male that he's not allowed to masturbate. It's because it's a horrible sin. Well, they know that you're going to, but they want to make sure that you feel suitably guilty so that you'll come to them for guidance in how to deal with the guilt that they have put on you. And again, it's hard to explain just how ferocious and all-encompassing a thing guilt is until you've actually experienced it. I know in the Irish culture, guilt is just such a massive, huge issue. I believe that your stereotypical happy drunken Paddy is drunk because he's trying to deal with the guilt that the priests inflicted upon him in his childhood and continue to do. The violence is an externalization, I think, of the sense of frustration and paralysis that guilt can cause. And I think that goes back long before even the Catholic Church. I believe that pre-Christian Celts were just as controlled by their priests, the Druids, which everyone has heard of, and seems to think that they are some sort of lovely nature-worshipping priesthood. Now, I don't believe that they are at all. I think that they had the Celts in an iron grip on the minds of these otherwise magnificent warriors. The Romans themselves were mystified how these big, ungovernable brutes were so slavishly subservient to their own priests. So, I don't know. I won't say that I understand Jewish guilt. It's something that does fascinate me. But I understand the effectiveness of Catholic guilt, particularly the Irish variant of it. And this ultimately is what got me to completely break, or in as much as I'm capable of doing it. Once they get inside you, they never leave. I wanted to break with the Catholic Church. I won't have anything to do with Catholicism anymore. I don't feel the rage against it that I used to. But that lingering sense of anti-Catholicism, somewhat similar to my Jewish friend's almost neo-Nazism at his stage of rebellion. When I went through the same thing, it was in my 20s, and I was convinced that the Catholic Church was the worst kind of mind control cult that has ever been devised. It is unbelievably, impressively effective in achieving what it wants, in getting control of people. This is breaking down, but I can only understand what it must have been like, say, my grandparents' generation, my great-grandparents. How about the Middle Ages? Can you imagine the power that these priests had over people? This is why I think I actually am irreligious, and in a certain way, I'm almost anti-religious. I don't have anything against anyone who is honestly religious and wants to use this as part of their life or as their explanation of the universe that we live in. But on balance, I think I'll take to my grave a resentment towards the Catholic Church for the employment of that most horrible and destructive thing, guilt. It is just, it's beyond words to describe it. Try to read Kafka or read James Joyce. You won't, even these nightmarish kind of novels or illustrations, Angela's Ashes or watching Woody Allen, you think that you can get it, but it's a lot stronger, it's a lot more ferocious, a lot more debilitating a thing. It's a dreadful, dreadful weapon used to control people. I think that the falling away from religion now is in many ways people's recognition that guilt is a bad thing if abused. Okay, a certain amount of guilt means that you've got a conscience. That's good. Like, if you do something that's immoral or that you believe is immoral, then it's healthy that you should feel guilty about it. But if you actually manipulate someone's normal sense of regret and use it against them, I cannot imagine a more powerful coercive force than skillfully applied guilt. Thank you.